Most people are literally throwing away free plants every single day, and they have no idea. That humble celery base, those green onion roots, even the knobby piece of ginger you're about to toss, each one is a living powerhouse capable of producing fresh harvest for months, sometimes years, right on your windowsill or in your backyard. After more than 3 decades of hands-on gardening, I've turned hundreds of kitchen scraps into thriving, productive plants that have saved me thousands of dollars and brought incredible satisfaction. Today I'm sharing my proven list of 20 vegetables and herbs you can easily regrow from ordinary store-bought produce. Stick around until number 16. It always surprises people most. And I'll finish with a powerful bonus tip that dramatically boosts your success rate. Let's turn your kitchen waste into a never-ending garden. Let's start with one of the absolute easiest and most rewarding regrows you'll ever try. Green onions, also known as scallions. When you buy a bunch in the store, you usually chop off the green tops and throw away the white rooted bases. Big mistake. Those rooted ends are gold. Simply place the white ends, roots down, in a small jar or glass with about an inch of water. Set it on a sunny windowsill. Change the water every couple of days, and within a week you'll see fresh, vibrant green shoots pushing up from the center. Once they reach a few inches tall, you can start snipping what you need for cooking while the plant keeps producing. For even stronger, long-term results, transplant them into a pot with good quality potting mix, burying them just deep enough to cover the roots and white portion. I personally love the variety Evergreen Hardy White because it forms vigorous bunches and performs beautifully in zones 6 through 9. In my garden, these have survived as perennials outdoors for years, giving me free green onions even in winter. If you're in a colder climate or just starting small, a sunny kitchen window will keep you harvesting all year long. This is truly beginner-proof. I've seen people with zero gardening experience get non-stop production from their first attempt. Next up is celery, a project that feels almost magical because it practically grows itself. The next time you use a bunch of celery, save the bottom 2 to 3 inches where all the stalks meet. Place that base cut side up in a shallow dish with about half an inch of water. Put it in a bright spot. A kitchen counter near a window is perfect. In just a few days, you'll watch tiny yellow-green leaves emerge right from the center. Keep the water fresh, and those leaves will quickly turn lush and green. Once you have a good cluster of new growth and small roots forming underneath, usually after 7 to 10 days, it's time to move it into soil. Use a container at least 8 inches deep filled with rich potting mix. Plant so the new growth is just above the soil line. Water thoroughly and give it the sunniest spot you have. From decades of experience, I recommend tall Utah 52 to 70 if you plan to grow it to full size outdoors. Celery loves cool weather, so spring or fall planting gives the best results in most zones. Don't expect supermarket-sized stalks right away, but the flavor of homegrown celery is noticeably sweeter and more aromatic than anything you'll buy. The third regrow on our list delivers one of the quickest wins in kitchen scrap gardening, romaine lettuce. When you cut a head of romaine for salads, save the bottom 2 inches of the core. That pale base still holds tremendous life. Place a cut side up in a shallow dish with just enough water to cover the bottom half inch. Position in bright, indirect light. Avoid scorching direct sun that can brown the edges. Change the water daily. In only 3 to 4 days, you'll see new leaves unfurling from the center, growing surprisingly fast. This method works best as a quick bonus harvest, rather than producing a full new head. Snip the tender young leaves when they reach a few inches tall, and enjoy them in sandwiches or as fresh garnish. In my experience, the variety Paris Island Cos is especially vigorous and reliable for this technique. Treat romaine as a cool season crop. It thrives in spring and fall when temperatures stay mild. I often keep several bases going on my windowsill during winter for a constant supply of baby greens. Next is bok choy, another leafy green that follows almost the same simple water method and proves incredibly reliable. After slicing off the leafy tops for a stir-fry, save the bottom 2 to 3 inches of the base. Set it cut side up in a shallow bowl with ½ inch of water. Keep it in good natural light, and refresh the water every day or 2. Within the first week, small leaves will emerge from the center. Bok choy is one of the more dependable regrows because the central growing point usually stays intact. Once roots form and new growth looks strong, transplant into a pot with quality potting mix. I highly recommend Joy Choy for its vigor and excellent performance in containers. From 30 years of growing it, I can tell you bok choy prefers cooler weather. Spring and fall are ideal. In summer heat, it tends to bolt. So grow it on a bright windowsill or shaded patio when temperatures rise. The 5th scrap vegetable that deserves your attention is cabbage. While it won't remake a tight supermarket head quickly, it still produces plenty of useful leafy greens. After cutting up a cabbage, keep the bottom core. Place it in a shallow dish with just enough water to keep the cut surface moist. Set it in a bright indoor spot and change the water every couple of days. New leaves usually sprout from the center within a week or so. These leaves are looser than the original, but perfect for soups, stir-fries, or sautés. Once roots develop, transplant into rich, well-draining soil, keeping the new growth just above the surface. I suggest a compact golden acre if you eventually want to try for full heads outdoors. Cabbage is a tough cool season crop that handles light frost well. Plant in early spring or fall for best results. Expect smaller secondary heads or continued loose leaf production. Still a fantastic return from something most people throw away. The 6th regrow on our list is basil, one of the most satisfying herbs you can propagate from grocery store cuttings. In my experience, this single technique has turned one small supermarket pack into a continuous supply that lasts all season long. When you bring home fresh basil, select the healthiest stems that are at least 4 inches long with several sets of leaves. Snip off the lower leaves and place the bare stems in a glass of water, so the stripped portion is submerged. Set the glass in a warm spot with bright, indirect light, and change the water every few days. Within 1 to 2 weeks, you should see healthy white roots emerging from the nodes. Once those roots reach an inch or 2 long, transplant each cutting into its own small pot filled with quality potting mix. Water gently and keep the soil consistently moist but never soggy. I always recommend Genovese basil for its classic sweet flavor and strong rooting ability. Basil thrives on warmth and sunshine, so give it the brightest window you have or move the pots outdoors once nights stay above 50 degrees Fahrenheit 10 degrees Celsius. Pinch off any flower buds as they appear. This keeps the plant focused on producing tender, flavorful leaves instead of going to seed. One well-cared-for plant can easily supply enough basil for all your pesto, pasta, and caprese needs. 7th on the list is mint. And once you get this one started, you may never need to buy mint again. Choose healthy stems from the store that are 4 to 6 inches long. Remove the leaves from the bottom half and place the bare stems in a jar of water on a sunny windowsill. Mint is incredibly vigorous. It often roots within a week, sometimes even faster. When the roots are an inch or longer, transplant into individual pots. Here's my strong extra advice after decades of gardening. Always grow mint in containers. This plant spreads aggressively through underground runners and can quickly overtake an entire garden bed if planted directly in the ground. Keeping it potted prevents that headache completely. Spearmint is my go-to variety for its bright, refreshing flavor that works beautifully in tea, desserts, and summer drinks. Mint tolerates partial shade better than most herbs and is perennial in zones 3 through 11, meaning one pot can give you harvest for many years with almost no effort. Number 8 is lemongrass, a tropical favorite that's surprisingly easy to start from grocery store stalks. Look for fresh lemongrass with the base intact, ideally showing a bit of the root plate. Trim the top leaves, leaving about 6 inches of the lower stalk. Place the trimmed bases in a jar with a few inches of water, keeping the bottom submerged. Set it in a warm, sunny spot and change the water every few days. Roots usually appear within 2 to 3 weeks. Once they're well established and new green shoots emerge from the top, transplant each stalk into a pot at least 8 inches wide filled with rich, well-draining mix. West Indian lemongrass is a common culinary type found in most stores. It loves warm conditions and can grow outdoors year-round in zones 9 through 11. In colder climates, treat it as a container plant and bring it indoors before the first frost. The fresh stalks you harvest will have far superior flavor compared to dried versions. The 9th herb that transforms a simple grocery store sprig into a long-lasting plant is rosemary. When buying fresh rosemary, choose firm, healthy stems that aren't dried out or browning. Select stems about 4 to 6 inches long and strip the leaves from the bottom 2 inches. Place the bare stems in a small jar of water, keeping only the stripped portion submerged. Position it in bright light, but out of harsh direct sun. Rosemary takes longer to root than softer herbs, often 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes more. Be patient and change the water weekly. Once you see white roots at least an inch long, transplant each cutting into a small pot with sandy, well-draining soil. Rosemary hates wet feet, so make sure the container has excellent drainage and let the soil dry out between waterings. After 30-plus years of growing herbs, I recommend the cold-hardy variety, Yarp, if you want to survive winters in Zone 6 with some protection. Most rosemary thrives in Zones 7 through 10. Give it full sun, and you'll eventually have a bushy plant that can supply your kitchen for a decade or longer. The flavor and aroma of fresh rosemary you grow yourself is dramatically superior to anything dried. 10th on the list is oregano, one of the easiest and most forgiving herbs for beginners. Fresh oregano from the store usually has stems long enough to propagate easily. Choose vibrant stems that haven't started flowering. Cut them into 4 to 5-inch sections and remove the lower leaves. Place the bare stems in a glass of water on a bright windowsill. Oregano roots readily, often within 1 to 2 weeks. Once the roots reach about an inch, transplant into small pots with well-draining potting mix. Let the soil dry out somewhat between waterings. Oregano prefers slightly drier conditions. Greek oregano is my favorite for its robust, authentic flavor that holds up beautifully in cooking. It's perennial in zones 5 through 10, so your rooted cuttings can return year after year. In colder areas, grow it in containers so you can bring it indoors during winter. Full sun produces the strongest flavor and most compact growth. Number 11 is thyme, a classic herb gardeners have propagated from cuttings for generations. Look for fresh thyme with pliable green stems rather than woody ones. Cut 3 to 4-inch sections and strip the tiny leaves from the bottom inch. Place the cuttings in a small jar with enough water to cover the bare portion. Set it in a sunny spot and refresh the water every few days. Thyme typically roots in 2 to 3 weeks. When the roots are at least an inch long, plant them in small pots using a gritty, well-draining mix. Like rosemary and oregano, thyme dislikes soggy soil, so allow the surface to dry between waterings. German thyme is an outstanding culinary variety with perfectly balanced flavor. It's hardy in zones 5 through 9 and can live for many years as a perennial, either in the garden or in a container on a sunny patio. One healthy plant eventually forms a beautiful mounding cushion that provides more fresh thyme than most kitchens can use. The 12th herb that regrows beautifully from store-bought cuttings is sage, a plant that gives you a real head start on a long-lived, beautiful culinary shrub. When you find fresh sage at the grocery store, look for stems that are still flexible and not overly woody. Cut sections about 4 inches long and remove the leaves from the lower half. Place these prepared cuttings in a jar of water with the bare stem submerged. Find a spot with bright, indirect light and change the water every few days. Sage roots at a moderate pace, usually taking 2 to 4 weeks before you see solid root development. Once the roots are an inch or longer, transplant each cutting into a pot with well-draining soil. Sage does not tolerate wet roots, So choose a container with excellent drainage and let the soil dry out between waterings. After decades of growing Mediterranean herbs, I recommend Bird's Garden Sage for its large, rounded leaves and outstanding cooking flavor. Sage is perennial in zones 4 through 8, and a single well-established plant can remain productive for many years. Give it full sun and leaner soil. This actually improves the intensity of its flavor. Your rooted cutting can eventually grow into a handsome silvery green shrub that becomes a centerpiece of any herb garden. Next is ginger, the 14th entry on our list and one of my personal favorites because it feels like magic when those tropical shoots emerge. Select firm, plump ginger rhizomes with visible growth buds, those small pointed nubs on the surface. Organic ginger almost always performs better since conventional pieces are sometimes treated with growth inhibitors. If you can find one already showing green tips, even better. Fill a wide container at least 4 inches deep with rich, well-draining potting mix. Plant the rhizome just below the surface with any visible buds pointing upward. Water lightly and place it in a warm spot with bright, indirect light. Ginger likes consistent moisture, but never soggy soil. Water when the top inch feels dry. Shoots typically emerge within a few weeks. Common ginger grows as a perennial outdoors only in zones 9 through 11, but I've successfully grown it in containers for years in colder climates. Bring the pot indoors before frost and let it go dormant over winter. After several months of growth, you can harvest fresh ginger by carefully digging around the edges. The flavor and potency of homegrown ginger far exceeds anything you'll find at the store. The 15th regrow follows a very similar process, turmeric. Fresh turmeric rhizomes are becoming easier to find in the produce section near the ginger. Look for firm pieces with visible buds or small bumps where new growth will emerge. Once again, organic pieces tend to sprout more reliably. Choose a container at least 6 inches deep. Fill it with rich, loose potting mix, and plant the rhizome 1 to 2 inches below the surface with buds facing upward. Water gently and place it in a warm location with bright, indirect light. Turmeric loves humidity and warmth. A sunny kitchen or bathroom window works wonderfully. Keep the soil consistently moist during the growing season. Shoots usually appear within a few weeks and develop into attractive tropical-looking foliage. Turmeric is perennial in zones 8 through 11, but most gardeners, including me, grow as a container plant that moves indoors during cold months. Harvest when the foliage begins to yellow and die back in fall. Dig carefully, save a few pieces for replanting, and enjoy the rest fresh or dried. The vibrant color and earthy flavor of your own turmeric makes every curry, golden milk, or tea taste special. The 16th regrow might surprise you the most, because it starts with something most people would never think to plant, a sweet potato. A single grocery store sweet potato can produce dozens of vigorous slips that grow into highly productive vines. Choose a healthy sweet potato with no soft spots or damage. Insert 3 or 4 toothpicks around the middle and suspend it over a jar of water so the bottom third stays submerged. Place it in a warm, sunny spot and keep the water level consistent. Within a few weeks, you'll see roots forming below and green shoots, called slips, emerging from the top when a slip reaches 6 to 8 inches tall with its own leaves. Gently twist it off and place it in its own jar of water to develop roots. Once those roots are a few inches long, it's ready for the garden after the last frost. I've had great success with Beauregard. It produces well in most regions. Sweet potatoes need a long, warm growing season and plenty of space for their vines to spread. Each slip can yield several pounds of sweet potatoes by fall, making this one of the most productive and rewarding regrows on the entire list. 17th is horseradish, one of the easiest and toughest perennials. You can start from a simple root piece. Fresh horseradish root is easy to find, especially in fall and winter. Select a firm piece about the size of your finger with no mold or soft spots. Plant it in a sunny or partly shaded spot with loose, well-draining soil. Dig a hole about 8 inches deep and place the root cutting at a 45-degree angle. with the top end roughly 2 inches below the surface. Cover, water well, and watch for shoots in a few weeks as the soil warms. Common horseradish is incredibly hardy and returns year after year, often more vigorously than you expect. After 30 years of gardening, I always recommend growing in a large pot or contained area because it can spread aggressively. Harvest roots in fall after frost. The cold actually sweetens the flavor. Leave a few pieces in the ground and you'll have a self-sustaining supply of this pungent, sinus-clearing condiment. Number 18 is garlic. Yes, you can grow it from grocery store cloves, though it comes with a few important caveats. Grocery garlic may come from a different climate or be treated to last longer on shelves, which can lower sprouting success. For best results, choose organic bulbs or ones already showing green sprouts. Separate into individual cloves, keeping the papery skin on and plant pointed end up 2 inches deep and 4 to 6 inches apart in full sun with well-draining, compost-rich soil. I prefer planting in fall for harvest the following summer, but spring planting works in colder zones. Hardneck varieties like Music do well in cold climates, while softneck types suit milder areas. Each clove grows into a full bulb, despite the caveats. Many gardeners, myself included, have excellent results growing garlic from store-bought bulbs. 19th are carrot tops. Important clarification: you won't grow a new carrot root, but you will get plenty of edible greens. Save the top inch of the carrot, including the crown where the leaves attach. Place it cut side down in a shallow dish with just enough water to cover the bottom. Set in bright light and change the water daily. Within a week, you'll see feathery green growth. These carrot greens are completely edible with a mild, slightly earthy flavor like parsley. Use them as garnish in pesto or toss in salads. Any fresh carrot with an intact crown works. It's a fun, zero-waste way to get extra value from your produce. 20th and final are beet tops. Like carrots, we're regrowing the nutritious leafy greens rather than a new root. Cut the tops about an inch above where the leaves attach, leaving a small portion of the beet connected. Place cut side down in a shallow dish with half an inch of water. Keep it bright and refresh the water daily. New leaves emerge within a week or so. Beet greens are highly nutritious and taste similar to Swiss chard. Young leaves are perfect for salads. Larger ones sautéed beautifully with garlic and olive oil. This is another simple kitchen counter project that turns waste into a vitamin-packed bonus crop. And now for the powerful bonus tip that can dramatically improve every regrow you try. Always use filtered or dechlorinated water instead of straight tap water. Chlorine and chloramine in municipal water can inhibit root development and slow sprouting. My go-to methods are letting tap water sit uncovered for 24 hours so chlorine evaporates, using a simple pitcher filter, or collecting rainwater. This small change makes a noticeable difference, especially with slower rooting plants like rosemary, sage, and ginger. Stronger roots faster, more vigorous leafy growth. It really works.